same conference on February 1st, 2016-17 in Karachi, with the same theme and the same content, with few new speakers. We are hosting it today again. This was for the audience of Karachi, and today's conference is designed for the delegates of Lahore, Islamabad, and other cities of Punjab. Today, our summit director is Mr. Max Babri, and I will request Mr. Max Babri to proceed the further proceedings. Mr. Max is the CEO of the consultants. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Azhar. Thank you. I hope all of you can hear me. That's exactly what happens in the morning. Of course, everybody can hear me, but we don't want to respond. That's fantastic. Let me ask again. Can you hear me? Yes. That's much better. We will get tea eventually in a little while. But I thought this is a more participatory event. Sound, please. And I thought I should ask all of you that, do you know what VUCA means? Raise your hands, those of you who know. Okay, that's good. And VUCA means volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous times. So what do we mean by volatile? Anybody, any comment? Volatile. Yes, sir? Not stable. Not stable, volatile. Great. And not stable is what was responded, because you don't have a microphone, so I might need to respond again what you said. So, and uncertain? Uncertain? Not you. Uncertain? Doubtful. Doubtful. Not sure what will happen. Okay, good. And complex? Complex, yes, Shiraz? Huh? Complicated. Complicated. Ambiguous? Unclear. Okay, unclear. Are these challenges or are these opportunities? That's what I want to ask you. Or are they a set of challenges and opportunities rolled into one? Bit of both. So challenges and opportunities. And that's the times that we are going to look at it. I wanted to give a positive spin onto what is happening. I just quickly also want to just mention a few words about what is organization. And we represent organizations and institutions here, so it's fair that we talk a little bit about organization. What is organization? I know we don't want to respond, but try. I know it's early morning and we haven't had our second cup of tea yet, but yes, yes ma'am. Group of people with common goals. Sounds very good. Sounds very good. And what is the most complex, volatile, uncertain, and ambiguous organizational system? The human body. There are components like heart, kidney, and lots of other things. I'm not an anatomy professional, so I don't know, but lots of things. Hormones, cells, white cells, red cells, brain, thought process, diseases. So there are lots of components inside us. And if these components do not communicate with each other and provide feedback, then the human organization will not survive to its optimum. So organization means components, serving a purpose, communicating openly and frankly, giving feedback, and continuously developing, and excelling in what they're supposed to do. So any breakdown in communication or any breakdown in what the understanding or what the objectives are, we will be misled. So with that, I'd like this opportunity to invite a wonderful, beautiful young lady. And although I'm much older, but I'm very fortunate that I have shared the same classrooms with her. And this is none other than Fatima Asad-Said, who's Regional Executive Director, Human Capital Development and Excellence for AbacusConsulting. Please put your hands together and let's invite Fatima Asad-Said. तालियां जरा जोश और खरोश के साथ होनी चाहिए. And Fatima is going to talk about managing talent in VUCA times. And Fatima, you have about 20 minutes.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope All of you are very well and the energy is really high today? Yes? Okay, that wasn't a very resounding yes. Great. Thank you so much for joining us today. The topic is something that has been discussed, deliberated, reflected upon time and time again. And that is something that we really need to understand and then apply in terms of how our organizations are evolving. So what Max very kindly, and thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, I am humbled, and I hope I live up to those expectations today. The VUCA world is something that is not new to this world. We are, if you look at the history, there are constant changes. If you look at 100 years ago and where we are right now, the kind of changes that have been brought about have been incredible. But what we're looking at right now is the speed with which things are changing. So there's always been uncertainty, there's always been unpredictability and ambiguity as countries evolve, as the world evolves, as organizations evolve. But it's the speed and the agility of organizations to respond and take action is what defines success now. And that is what I'm talking about. I will start off with the challenges. My entire discussion today talks about these 4 elements where we're saying brace the impact. So what is the impact? What is happening in this world for us to say managing talent in the VUCA world is a completely different phenomena than what it was maybe 15, 20 years ago? And what are the challenges? And what are the future of talent management? And how does data fit in? Because we live in the digital world now. And a few takeaways. So as you go back to your respective organizations and your respective roles, you think about these questions. And you think about, are we on the right track in terms of harnessing the human potential that exists within the circle of influence that we have? So when you talk about bracing the impact, you talk about a change, a pace which will never slow down. There are multiple challenges that face this world, from natural calamities to instability in governments to war, unfortunately. And this is on the increase. Perhaps it was always like this, some would say. It's the information that is coming to us with speed, which is also creating this dissonance, this uncertainty that exists. Our ability to reflect and react is also, there's a lot of noise that's going on. The other aspect is the environment. As we all know, climate change is a factor that is imperative for all of us to address and be aware of, whether it is when we're talking about food and water shortages. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm taking you to managing talent because these are the key issues that we as human beings have to be cognizant of in order to add greater value in the future. Alternative energy resources, the oil prices, for example, it's falling, but it's going to go back up again. So the long trend is away from what has been traditionally done from fossil fuels. And we are all aware of the macroeconomic and also the external environment. Another factor is where there is a shift from the west to the east to the south. And we see that happening. The World Economic Forum has redefined the top emerging, growing economies of the world. By 2025, and I'm very proud to say that Pakistan would be one of them. And I'm sure all of us in this room are committed to ensuring that happens. But with that shift, obviously there are economic challenges. And one of the top challenges is how do we use technology to accelerate and add value. Just these rapid changes, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I would like you to now think from an individual perspective. Look at where you were in 1969, when some of you were born at that time, or some of you weren't. And look at what has happened right now as we stand in 2017. Exponential change. Is that agreed? Yes or no? Every day there is a certain application, a certain program, a certain platform, a certain company coming into existence, changing the way we do business, changing the way we as humans deal with our professional and personal lives. How many of you in this room have smartphones? Raise of hands. Come on, don't be shy. All of you? Yes, of course. How many of your children have smartphones? Right? If they don't have a smartphone, they have a tablet. They have a device. They're connected to the world. This is the digital age. We are growing up. We are managing our lives in that. But are we thinking about our people in the same way when we go back to our organizations? Are we still on the traditional way of talent management? Ask yourself that. A growing percentage of your population in your organization is tech savvy. Are you giving them that environment? Ask yourselves that. And where are you on that? So change is not linear anymore, and the augmented reality which exists is virtual. Virtual offices, virtual ways of doing things, robotics coming into it. Some organizations in China and Japan are already replacing the human factor by robots. Smartphones, smart homes. This is the future, and it exists now. We can translate, we can talk to people across the world without having any qualms about not understanding their languages. And just to give you a preview, and this is some information that is based on a survey that Mercer did as well, 4 billion people will be online by 2020. What's the population of our world today? Sorry? Yes, and it's rising. We're looking at 10 billion by maybe 2050. Some of the numbers, and I see Badr over here, so I'm hoping he would corroborate this information as well, because you've got a great knowledge on this particular aspect. But this is how the changes are coming in board. You have autonomous cars, new traffic laws. So now what happens? Now think about it. When an industry changes, so does the business model. In 1990s, the music industry had a monopoly. Early 2000s, a technology company comes up with what do they come up with? An iPod. The dynamics completely changed. A totally unrelated industry changes the way the music industry was growing. And all of a sudden, your direct competition is not from your direct competitor anymore. It's from a totally unrelated. Therefore, forcing organizations to change their business model as well as the people who are within them, the skills that reside, the focus, the ability to take on challenges. So you're talking about cheaper, better, and faster. And that is the VUCA world right now for our corporate leaders as well as in the development sector as well. Just because we are a developing country of almost 200 million people does not mean we're not connected. Our usage, I believe, is more than 120 million in terms of phones. That's not about education, it's about access. So technology is everywhere, from social, mobile, analytics, artificial intelligence, as well as big data. I'll talk a bit about big data. So given this background, I'll ask you to, just for a minute, think about your own respective organization, your own respective circle of influence. How do you rate your HR department vis-a-vis the challenges that I've just shared with you? Anyone, on a scale of 1 to 10? Anyone brave enough to give me a number? Yes, thank you. 7? Excellent. So you're trying to close the gap. So what kind of initiatives have you taken to take on these challenges?
I'm from S&P Global, so we are a numbers-driven company anyways. So metrics is something that we I mean, that's our heart and soul, that's our business. So we measure everything. So you spoke about numbers. So what we believe is that if we can measure it, we can improve it. Otherwise, we cannot. Technology, we are a technology-based company as well. So what we've done is everything that we have for our employees is accessible through their cell phones. So even if they have to log in attendance, they can do it from their cell phone. We can track it where they've logged in from. If it's a survey that they have to fill in, they can do it from their cell phones. We're providing similar services to all our customers as well. Everything, all our products are available on tabs, on cell phones, on computers.
So it's already happening.
It is,
yeah.
It is. And moving, as you said, extremely fast. Things are changing very, very rapidly.
Thank you very much for your input. A round of applause for sharing that particular case study with us. Let's apply that. So what is the new workforce, ladies and gentlemen? Multi-generational, always on the move, mobile. You can be sitting, having your holiday, and be connected to your office, even though some would not prefer to do that, but that's what it is right now. Multicultural, robotics, millennials. These are some of the challenges that face us today. And are we geared up to have a segmented, customized approach to managing our workforce better? Have we done that study? Have we analyzed it from a strategic sense? And HR is not just the HR department. HR is the CEO, HR is the C-level, HR is every leader that you have within your organization. HR department is just the facilitator, but they need to have a knowledge on the business in order to provide solutions that make the organization deliver higher performance. So, by and large, I would say, while talent has gone digital, HR has not, by and large. There are exceptions. We've already had an example, and I'm sure there are others in this room who would also corroborate the fact that, yes, they are moving. Look at how recruitment is being handled on the portals. Look at how interfacing is taking place within the organization, whether it's Facebook or whether other social network platforms that organizations allow in terms of communication. They say 75% of the workforce will be of the millennials by 2025. What are we doing about that? 89% choose to work elsewhere. And they don't want a 9-to-5 position. What have we done about that? It's not just the technology companies that face this, it's every single industry. 90% do not plan to stay with their current employer for more than 5 years. This is global numbers. It may be slightly more in Pakistan, but I think all of us as business leaders who are here face this challenge. But it's not that they don't want to stay because they don't want to perform. They will give the best while they're there, but then be cognizant of the fact that they will move on because they want their own individual objectives being achieved. They prefer to be on the move. How many of you sleep with the phone next to them? On the bedside table? Come on, raise your hands. Most of us. What's the first thing you do when you get up in the morning? Yeah, you pick up WhatsApp messages, emails, any text messages, even though text messages is now redundant. It's more about WhatsApp now. Think about your own behaviors and then reflect back and see those hundreds of people who are working in your organizations, they have similar behaviors as well. Interestingly, only 29% of millennials find meetings are worth it. So that's something to think about as well. So these are some of the challenges, and technology does create opportunities. You focus on consumerism. I won't go into too much detail, but this study is available on Mercer.com if any of you are interested to delve in further. You talk about changing the nature of work and the workforce. We talk about the integration of work and personal life. And last but not least, anytime, anywhere, any place. So when you're changing the dynamics, it's integrating closely the individual objectives with the organizational objectives. We've always thought about doing that. But right now, it is much more imperative that we align these two objectives. And what are the channels? Social enterprise, mobile HR services, analytics-based insight, HR on cloud, Some of you already have transited to that. And intelligent HR services. So you're talking about analyzing the data much more closely and carefully. So, moving on, this is what the landscape is in the digital era. So while you have the entire value chain of HR from employee interaction to analytics and with the processes of HR, you're also, interestingly, saying all of these aspects, which are the channels of digital, are factoring and impacting. For example, you have recruiting. This is impacted by social enterprise, mobile services, as well as HR on cloud, to name a few. So you see where the support is coming in from these various channels of a digital platform. It will be interesting for you to do this analysis for your own organization and see where are you vis-a-vis each of these particular processes within the HR function. So what we're saying is 53% of the jobs that exist today will be gone over the next 10 years. But they won't have completely disappeared. They would have transformed, and they will change. How they will change is what we need to analyze right now. And when they change, the skill set is completely different. Data. The final part of my presentation. It's all about data. This particular is what we say right now. Access to data, analyzing that data is the key challenge. In order to analyze, you need better, faster, focused, detail-oriented analytical skills, the ability to research, the ability to sift through that noise and massive information that's coming our way and look at what is relevant, important, and impactful. Correct?
Yes.
That is what we need to do right now if we want to manage in the new world of work. So they say more data has come into this world in the last 2 years as compared to the previous history of this particular world as we know it. 5 billion will be digitized by 2020. It reminds me of the movies like Matrix and other movies as well, the Terminator. So hopefully it's not all bleak, but that's what's happening. The data is controlling us. The machines are, in a way, impacting us. Interestingly enough, 61% of CIOs now want to hire chief data officers. Another role being created. As I said, roles are not diminishing, they're changing. Have we changed them within our organization? And only 0.5%, less than that data is analyzed today. So the challenges are contingent workforce, 4 generations, digitalization, and flexible work patterns. And each of these have been increasing because of the data that this table talks about year-to-year change. For example, correlating people data to business performance. 24% in 2015, 39% in 2016, and it is on the rise. So using data to better manage your people through their personality, attitudes, social networking, and real-time attitude and emotion. So that will impact greater, higher performance, manage your attrition, manage the innovation, and most importantly, manage collaboration. I won't go into too much detail, even though I have talked about these particular aspects as a case study, but I think I will leave you with some of the thoughts now, because it is about collaborating now. It is a knowledge-sharing economy. We need to stop looking at each other as competitors from an individual and as organizational perspective. Yes, we need to survive, but we also need to collaborate better in order to harness and engage and also foster the innovation that is taking place. Encourage it so that we may grow in an ecosystem from the government to the individuals to the corporate leadership that will enable faster growth. But a collaborative approach is what we should aim towards. and have that plan that we grow in a world where we are all connected like this. It's no longer linear. It's no longer functional. There are 140 connections an average work person has in the organization, within the workplace. What are we doing to leverage that? That's just one of the questions that I would ask. And there's a flip, that 80-20 rule, it's all about analysis now. But what are we analyzing? As Shiraz pointed out, are we measuring? Are we managing what we're measuring? And what are we measuring? Is it linked to organizational objectives? So, final thoughts? Key questions now. The first is, do you have a strategy? And what is that strategy, given this particular background? Is data analysis the center of that particular strategy? Is it linking up to where you want to be in terms of your organizational goals? Third question, how are you enhancing your talent management practices, keeping in view the first two questions? And lastly, how are you equipping with the skills that are required? Do you have that 2025 plan within your organization in order to manage your resources in such a way that they don't only deliver higher performance to your organization, but to higher value to the ecosystem that is being driven? And for that, ladies and gentlemen, right now we need leadership which is mindful, which has the agility to unlearn, relearn, and take action in order to harness the incredible population that we have only in our country to add greater value and higher performance. So thank you very much, and over to you, Max.
Thank you, Fatima. Wonderful presentation. I'll leave this one here for a little while.